Though the Suns lost their game to the Orlando Magic from a handful of days ago, I think it's a bookmark moment for the season for them because in this stretch of games where they've been operating without Kevin Durant and for the most part without Bradley Beal as well, maybe the bright spot is how they've figured out how to use Oso Ighodaro within the lineups in their rotation and get the most out of him, but also unlock things defensively for this team that they can build on going forward once they have their full capacity of personnel. So we're going to look at the film specifically in this matchup in the third quarter against the Orlando Magic because the Suns though they were more aggressive than their typical defensive base in terms of coverage in this game, they were still blitzed ad nauseum in that first half against the Magic. And particularly it was Franz Wagner in pick and roll. And what they went to in the third quarter with Oso Ighodaro on the floor with no other big was red, which is essentially just switching 1 through 5 with almost everything that incorporates a screen. And what that unlocks is something that we're going to be looking at in this film session. So we're going to be looking at the screening, we're going to be looking at the switching in red coverage. In addition to that, we're going to be looking at the Suns manipulating matchups with Oso and Ryan Dunn, and just generally looking at the Suns switching reps in this film session. So let's go ahead and dive into the film, looking at Oso Ighodaro, spearheading red coverage. All right, first thing we're going to be looking at are matchups, and we're going to be looking specifically at the 5 Suns on the floor. So it's Tyus Jones, Grayson Allen, Devin Booker, Ryan Dunn, Oso Ighodaro. Definitely not the biggest lineup in terms of height or in terms of wingspan, but like I mentioned in the open, with red coverage, they're getting into switching, and they're banking on their activity being able to send the offense of the Orlando Magic off script. Within the layers of that process for their defense in terms of their switching, we're also going to be looking at the cross-matching. And I want to make sure everybody looks at matchups with each rep that we're looking at in this film session because those are very important to note with what they're doing and the responsibilities of each player. So we got start off with Oso Ighodaro, obviously the center in this group. He's going to be guarding Tristan da Silva. Tristan da Silva, by the Suns' scouting report, is not a shooter. So what Oso is going to be doing is looking to reorganize the Suns' defense external of any primary action that might be taking place on the perimeter. He's not going to be worried about him taking shots from deep. In the event that he does, the Suns feel like that's a win for them, even with no contest. That's called the roamer role. He's just roaming around trying to cause chaos, but also keep the defense organized within their switching principles. So look at the rest of the matchups. If he's guarding a non-shooter and a wing, that means that someone else has to be taking over for who's guarding the opposing center. Now let's shift our attention to Ryan Dunn. That's exactly what he's doing. He's flipping all the screening actions that Goga Bitadze is looking to get into automatic switches, and that's going to be working to keep the offense of the Magic perimeter oriented, flattening out all of the actions that they're trying to get into with screening from Bitadze. And then everybody else is just going to be switching from there as well, with Devin Booker guarding up multiple positions to guard Franz Wagner, as well as obviously Tyus Jones at the point of attack and Grayson Allen on the wing with KCP. So we see the Magic getting into this first rep. And this is an action that we talked about in the very first Stevens study, and it's that shallow cut in which we see the person that's on ball that's using a pick is going to see the player occupying the opposite wing of where action is taking place run underneath that action. And this shallow cut is just to manipulate space. And if the Suns were not switching and Devin Booker had to navigate the screen from Bitadze, Franz Wagner would be anticipating this pocket of space at the right slot/right wing area of the floor to be wide open for him to drive towards, and then just to generally play in space, whether he can turn a corner or retreat dribble and then work in isolation from there without having to worry about a double team. Talked about that part, but because the Suns are switching, we're going to also pay attention to the activity level within the switching from Ryan Dunn. So Devin Booker switching with Ryan Dunn is not just the passing off of the baton. He's literally taking over on the matchup with an aggressive switch. So you see Ryan Dunn step up past the three-point line, crowd the airspace of Franz Wagner, and also be directional with his body language, influencing him to his left hand, but also saying you're not getting to your strong hand, your right hand here, where I know the space has been created. Job well done from Ryan Dunn in terms of his fundamentals within the switching and his body positioning and being able to kind of take pockets away from the ball handler while he's out there in space. Job well done there. We're going to ultimately see the Magic flow into a post touch to try to undo some of the Suns switching. Talked about the matchups already after the switching that took place. Watch the Suns do a solid job, starting with Devin Booker, containing the post, terminating that dribble, and then you see Tyus Jones as well as Ryan Dunn sinking in to really just shrink the floor on Bataze's post touch, knowing that it's a conceded mismatch there. Job well done from all of the Suns. Ryan Dunn's going to then spray back out on the catch from Wagner, who's one pass away, gets up a decent enough contest. It's a miss. Job well done from the... All right, on this rep again, we're going to be seeing the Suns are cross-matched like I spoke to in the last rep. You got Oso Ighodaro matched up with Tristan da Silva. You got Ryan Dunn on Goga Bataze, and then the rest of the matchups are same and flowing across the board as well. And we're going to be paying attention again to Oso Ighodaro and his roaming. And this time we're going to get a better sense of what I was speaking to with what his responsibility is as a roamer as you see the kind of action flow through for the Orlando Magic. So we get the switch up top. Obviously, naturally, like I spoke to in red, they're switching 1 through 5 with all screening actions. They get an early offense screen for the Magic from Bataze. He immediately enters into the strong side elbow/block area of the floor below the free throw line with Tyus Jones matched up on him. Now, on the back corner of the court, on the left side of the screen, bottom left corner, you see Oso Ighodaro. He's the low man. Like I mentioned, he's guarding who's deemed a non-shooter by the Suns scouting report in Tristan da Silva. And his roaming responsibilities are to organize the Suns' switching scheme once things kind of get undone up top and teams try to take advantage of a post mismatch or things of that nature. So watch as you see Tyus Jones be walked into the post. You see Oso Ighodaro time up the double team from the baseline. And it's a soft double team just to kick Tyus Jones out of this matchup that's taking place on ball. Job well done there from him. You can see the communication, obviously, from Grayson Allen and Devin Booker as well to keep the defensive shell intact. Job well done from the Suns. Also want to make sure we pay attention specifically as well to this help that's going to be conceded right here from Tyus Jones. As you see the Silva get into this drive, you see Tyus Jones do a great job just loading up that strong side block. When you're in this switching scheme and you know you're lacking size, you have to be on point with your help. He does a great job overloading that strong block. And now this is where the Suns have to be better within their switching scheme, and that's rebounding the basketball. You concede size. That means that everybody has to be that much more urgent about their efforts to get on the glass. Too much watching in terms of the shot getting on goal. And the only person really even having somewhat of an effort to go and pursue the basketball is Ryan Dunn or Oso Ighodaro here. That's not going to get it done. That gets a little bit easier when you have players like Royce O'Neal as well as Kevin Durant on the floor within your switching lineups. But this is an iteration of lineups that I can see the Suns using more going forward. And this is exactly where they just generally have to be better. Ryan Dunn now off the floor and Royce O'Neal in place of him. And we're going to see, like I mentioned, more traditional matchups. So it's going to be Oso Ighodaro. There's going to be guarding the opposing center and Goga Bataze. We're going to see the Magic flow into kind of some high split action. Quick pitch over to Wagner. Nothing's really there. The Suns do a good job with their denial. They pitch it into Bataze at the high slot area of the floor. His feet are staggering the three-point line. And then we're going to see them flow into a little bit of zoom action. So you see the screen here from Suggs for Wagner. And then we're going to see Bataze kind of just pitching the handoff and then just kind of trying to undo the switching by slipping the screen. We're going to see the Suns get into their switching scheme here. We're going to see Ighodaro take over on ball for Devin Booker. We're going to see a solid tag to make sure that Bataze can't just slip into an advantageous matchup. The Magic are running this knowing that the Suns are switching. But Devin Booker, though he's still at a size mismatch on Bataze, no different than Tyus Jones is, his mismatch is not conceding as much in size as obviously Tyus Jones would, being the smallest player on the court between both teams. So the Suns do a good job of kind of sussing through that within their switching process. They're solid, they're communicative, and now it's about and then what. So we get the pitch inside, like I've talked about in a couple of reps. They pitch it into the post to try to undo and change the line of sight and the angles at which switching and action is being taken place from. We're going to see the Suns do a solid job. Now they're going to flow into a little bit more zoom action. You see another screen set for Franz Wagner. They're really trying to get him the ball in movement and able to get downhill in some capacity. You're going to see the pitch. And then you see the screen from Bataze. You see another switch. But the issue is, as we see here with Franz Wagner getting into this pull-up that goes uncontested. As I take it back, you know the end result is going to be a made bucket. This is where the Suns have to be better within their switching scheme. They're solid initially through the first action. They flow into a second and third action on this rep. And then you can see the switching in terms of its sharpness not be where it was to start the possession. Devin Booker, knowing that Bataze is going into a dribble handoff scenario here, also knowing Tyus Jones is behind him, has to be up to touch, but also at the level of this switch so that he's not conceding this pull-up pocket here for Franz Wagner. Action just generally happens entirely too quickly for Devin Booker to react. He's behind the 8-ball on that, ends up conceding a wide-open catch-and-shoot three to the hottest player on the court. Last possession was a flawed rep from Devin Booker. This possession is going to be a good one from Devin Booker. We're going to make sure we pay attention and highlight that in their switching scheme here as well. So we see them flowing into a little bit more of just kind of they're pitching it to their center and playing through him out on the perimeter. Ends up flowing into an angle handoff for, obviously, Franz Wagner from Goga Bitadze. Watch Devin Booker, though. We know they're in red in terms of switching 1 through 5, but you don't want to just concede switches. You want to make your opponents work to get the switch for the favorable matchup that they desire. Watch the difference in urgency with Devin Booker as he's navigating with Franz Wagner that he's in charge of in terms of assignment versus how he was on the last rep where he ended up conceding that pull-up pocket, which we highlighted. Just look at the difference in urgency. Good screen navigation 1, screen navigation 2 keeps Oso from being engaged, bleeding away the shot clock, and forcing the Magic to now flow through more options. None of which the options that they have on the floor are as good as Franz Wagner getting the ball, and getting the ball especially with the matchup that he might desire. So great job from there. Now they're just trying to find offense at this point. And now they get back to Franz Wagner again, but the difference in context, he's going into a place on the court where the Suns are more than comfortable in terms of defending. It's an awkward angle in terms of where the action is going to ultimately be taking place. And it's also, if you look at the clock, only 7 seconds left. The Suns have done a great job with their switching scheme and that as a sense of urgency, setting the tone for the possession from Devin Booker with the screen navigation. Ultimately, that's going to put them late in the shot clock, and now they're able to get into a switch with Oso Ighodaro, and this is where his impact as a switch defender can also be felt late in the clock, where he's very solid and really good with just getting up solid contests. He does that there. And now we're going to see the Magic working through some of their movement action, trying to get into twirl. That's going to be, it's a cousin to double stagger screens. So we're going to see Tristan da Silva. This is something the Suns get into a lot, especially when the big three are all on the court. You see Tristan da Silva use the first screen in the stagger screen set, ultimately curls it, rejects that second screen, and now it just turns into a wide pin down. Again, another action that you see the Suns cycle through a lot with the big three. We're going to see a solid job from Royce O'Neal navigating that. Nothing comes of that action. They pitch it to their center again, and they try to play through him to help connect and also alleviate pressure. The Suns are going to do a decent job initially, but as I pause it there at the still frame, you can already see where they're creating the Magic are creating a reaction advantage. So because they flowed into so many zoom actions where they pitch it to the center, and then the passer ends up setting a screen for Wagner to then flow off of the handoff going towards the outside or outer third portion of the court. This is where they create the reaction advantage. They've done it so many times. We've highlighted it a couple times already in this film session alone. Suggs now generates the reaction advantage. The Suns are compromised because their switching is not on schedule in terms of Royce O'Neal and Devin Booker. Communication has to be better. The reaction advantage ends up being conceded to Suggs as you see him kind of flowing off of this dribble handoff. Great job from Bitadze, not just being a statue after giving the handoff, but also setting a screen on Oso Ighodaro so he can't get up a viable contest. The Suns dodged this bullet, and this is a player that they would desire to be taking this shot. But you don't want to be conceding these type of shots on consistency. They do that there. That's some of the things that they're working through within their switching scheme. And then the last big thing here, I talked about the rebounding. That's a margin that the Suns have to be better with especially when they're in their switching lineups. They're going to be smaller. You're conceding size. The urgency and effort to box out, to double team guys like right here, instead of Devin Booker or Grayson Allen or even Royce O'Neal just watching the basketball, one of those two should be helping tag team, if not triple team, Goga Bitadze to make sure that he can't get his hands on this basketball. If someone else is going to beat the Suns here, it has to be either Tristan da Silva or Franz Wagner. It can't be Goga Bitadze. Suns have to do a better job with their boxing out scheme in terms of the general approach and the urgency within that. When they're in these smaller lineups, they end up conceding an extra possession here, and that's just something that. All right, then on this rep, you're going to see some more stagger action from the Orlando Magic. Tristan da Silva rejects that screen, and then you just see Suggs kind of pop on the action to kind of just get things going on offense. They really haven't had anything going on this possession so far. Already passed or at the halfway mark of the possession now with 12 seconds left. So things are working in favor for the Suns. Now we see a switch from obviously Devin Booker and Oso Ighodaro. Now you got Oso defending in space. And watch how this action unfolds and what happens with the Suns here. So no switch on the initial screen as you see Tyus Jones navigating to stay attached to Jalen Suggs. Ultimately going to see the switch between Tyus Jones and Devin Booker. And this is what we're going to be speaking to with that next layer in terms of the roamer role and just being a switch anchor with Oso Ighodaro. And that's him being able to organize the switches after they concede a matchup that they might not necessarily want to, that could potentially take advantage of the post area of the floor. So you see all of that action take place, and you're going to ultimately see the dive to the basket here from Bitadze. And now watch Oso Ighodaro as he switches on the fly. Boom. Switches on the fly. This is essentially a peel switch, but it's taking place off the ball instead of on the ball between Tyus Jones and Oso Ighodaro. Great job there between those two. Suggs then doesn't look to even pitch the ball into the post like he initially was looking at. Devin Booker does a decent job in terms of containing the basketball, but does an even better job of getting up a solid contest without fouling. As I pause it right there, that's A+ defense on the recovery in terms of not conceding the drive, but also getting up a very solid and impactful contest while not fouling. Job well done from Devin Booker. The Suns are going to get a stop. Orlando is starting to wise up and get really clever with the actions and how they're pairing their actions with their spacing. So we're going to see them flow, get the wide pin down for Franz Wagner. Good job from Royce O'Neal in terms of defending that. They're not looking to get it to him quite yet, though. And then we're going to see him turn around, and now he's going to, he being Franz Wagner, is going to set a wide pin for Tristan da Silva. He's going to then flow off a dribble handoff there from Wagner, and you're going to see Wagner then dive directly to the basket. So they run this action in particular because they know that the Suns are going to be switching it. So you get Tristan da Silva running off of that dribble handoff from Wagner. And now watch the relation between Wagner getting into the handoff and then his other brother, Wagner, staying above the three-point line in terms of his spacing. And now we're going to watch the player that they're putting in conflict here is Royce O'Neal. So they're going towards the double side of the court, meaning that there's only going to be one player that's available to potentially tag or switch onto the roller. Royce O'Neal, because of the angle, in addition to the pace at which things are happening, is not going to be able to get a tag on the roller, and he's going to err on staying with obviously the best player on the floor at this moment in time, the hottest scorer on the court, in Wagner, in Franz Wagner. And because of that, you see Royce is kind of in conflict. He kind of wants to go that way, but he also doesn't want to leave this shooter wide open. Errs on that, staying with the shooter, and that's going to open up a wide open pass over the top for Mo Wagner. And because it's Grayson Allen that's on him, because he ended up switching with Oso Ighodaro up top on the dribble handoff, there's going to be no help in terms of the low man or low activity from the Suns. Everybody's spaced out. Royce O'Neal is above the break, above the free throw line even. And advantage is going to be to the Magic underneath the basket. They pitch it right into it. All right, last rep here from sideline out of bounds. You're going to see the Suns do a solid job initially up top. You're going to ultimately see the switch here from Oso Ighodaro with Royce O'Neal. They're more than okay with that matchup. Royce doesn't need anybody to kick him out or scram him out of this post mismatch. They trust him in the post. And now it's going to be just isolation defense. 7 seconds left on the shot clock. Oso Ighodaro defending in space. He's going to do a great job sliding, defending without fouling, doing a good job of reaching but not doing anything to foul. Again, you want to emphasize not fouling, and ultimately getting up a solid contest on the shot. And look at the Suns doing a decent job in terms of boxing out. But the last thing is just the pursuit of the basketball. So obviously you have Devin Booker on Jonathan Isaac here. He just really bullies and bull rushes Devin Booker here. If you just revert your attention there, he's crashing with ill intent to get the basketball, or at even best in potential to that, just pick up a foul. So you get to that point, he jumps over the top of Devin Booker. Now, one, you could say if Devin Booker boxes out just the slightest bit better, he might get an over the back call here. This still could have potentially been over the back, considering there is effort from Devin Booker to box him out. He just got pushed inside the restricted area. But my big thing here is there's two other players that are flanking in, and Monte Morris and also Royce O'Neal, that can be helping. Somebody's got to either double team Jonathan Isaac in terms of a box out inside and a box out outside onto the backside, and then that other person just being eager with pursuing the basketball. I'm sure this is something that they've looked at over these handful of days where they've been off in terms of where they can be better, because I do think that, as I see, they'll be seeing that they're switching schemes and the switching lineups they can get into will be effective. This is a one way that this is a non-negotiable if you're going with small ball. You got to get better pursuit of the ball, and they just didn't have it here. They would ultimately concede another extra possession to the Orlando Magic.